Yo, so guys, today we're going to be talking about the top 5 most powerful flagship smartphones. These are some of the best that you can get right now. So let's go ahead and get started with one of my favorite phones, the Pixel 6 Pro. Now, like I told you guys in a lot of my videos, this is the go-to camera phone out of all the phones, flagship phones that I test. I really do like the image processing and coloring on the Pixel 6 Pro. So this phone has a pretty unique design. It doesn't look like any of the other big flagships. It's got this really cool looking camera bar, and it's a glass back and aluminum frame. It's IP68 dust and water resistant as well. It has a 6.7-inch LTPO AMOLED display. It is 120 Hz with HDR10 plus, and it's a curved display at 1440p, 512 for the PPI. I really like the display. A lot of people don't like that it's curved. I don't have an issue with curved displays. It's got the punch hole in the middle. I actually think this is Google's best looking flagship that they put out so far, as far as the back of the phone and the front of the device. So the main selling point with these Pixel phones is that you get a stock version experience of Android 12. So let's just say on one UI you have a Google Photos application, then a Samsung gallery, and it's sort of throughout the whole phone. With the stock Android, it's just all the Google apps. It's just no bloatware. You have the Google Tensor chip on here, the Mali G78 GPU. It's a very powerful phone. It's up there with the best flagships in terms of the benchmarks. And one of the best things about this phone is that you get the updates extremely fast. So when Android 13 comes out, you'll be one of the first ones to get it if you are on a Pixel device. As far as gaming and everything else, this is a very fast device. I had no issues with performance on here. Now this phone does not have any type of SD card support. It's 128 gigs of internal storage and 12 gigs of RAM on the base model, which is plenty enough for most people. And then you also have some amazing sounding stereo speakers, really impressive, excellent bass quality, some of my favorite stereo speakers of this year. So you do have NFC on board. The fingerprint scanner, it does work after the updates. It's not bad, but it's not the fastest. So if you ever use like an S22 Ultra or a OnePlus device, this one is not quite as fast as those, but it gets the job done. We need face unlock on the Pixel, so Google, please add that. Also, let's just talk about the highlight with this phone, the camera. So a 50 megapixel standard, a 48 megapixel telephoto lens with 4x optical zoom, and then a 12 megapixel ultra wide with 4K 60, and then a 11.1 ultra wide selfie cam, which is really awesome as well. So you get 4K 30 on that. And like I said, one of my favorite go-to cameras. If I'm ever in a situation where I'm taking photos seriously, I'm bringing this phone with me 100%. I love the colors. I love how it does the skin tones on people of color as well. The ultra wide is really nice on here. All the different lenses have the same color as the main lens, and absolutely love the cameras on here. The video is actually not as good as something like an S22 Ultra or a 13 Pro or something like that. So the video is just, it's a step down. But I do really like the cameras on here. So this phone does have a 5003 milliamp battery, 30 watt charging with wireless charging at 23 watts, and then reverse wireless charging. The battery life is pretty good on here. You can easily get all day battery life, well over 6 hours of screen on time on this phone. So definitely consider the Pixel. $900. It's a pretty good pickup. Alright, so next is the iPhone 13 Pro. And again, you can get the 13 Pro Max as well too if you want a bigger phone. And it's the same thing for the Pixel. If you want the smaller one, you go with the Pixel 6. But yeah, the 13 Pro, about $1,000, and I am super impressed with this phone. I actually still have my main SIM in this phone right now. I just switched to it just to give it another feel, and I absolutely love this phone. There's a couple of highlight things with this phone that I think it does really well. So obviously you have the beautiful design on here, stainless steel frame, the matte finish on the back, absolutely gorgeous design on here. The only thing I don't like about the design is the sharp edges on the phone. I really prefer the older iPhone style where the edges were smoother. This phone also has a Super Retina XDR OLED 120 Hz display. It is HDR10, and it is 1000 nits brightness, max 1200 nits brightness at 6.1 inches. So I really like the screen size on here. The resolution is 1170 by 2532, so basically 1080p plus, 460 for the PPI. The display is really nice display. It's very color accurate display. The 120 Hz is really nice and smooth on here, so it's finally nice to see 120 Hz on iPhones. But the display still has a notch, and the notch is smaller, but it's like worse than the other previous one because it's like it's longer. But the notch is fine. You get used to it after a while. But I heard rumors that they are actually getting rid of the notch this year, so excited to see that. But the display is absolutely fantastic. You do have, of course, iOS 15. The good thing about when you buy an iPhone is that you're going to get updates for years and years to come. So there's no telling how long this thing will get updates. Most likely around 8 years of OS updates for this phone. The Apple A15 chip is one of the fastest chips as far as the benchmarks are concerned. It does an excellent job. Super smooth. This phone, I've never had this phone lag on me or stuff like that, even when gaming and stuff like that. So it's a very smooth phone. The experience is just awesome. You do have 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM. This phone also has very good stereo speakers as well. Super loud bass, very good mids and highs, just super clean sound overall. And then you also have the 128 gigs and 6 gigs of RAM, so the multitasking experience and all that stuff is really smooth on this phone. Face ID works really well now. They updated it to work with a mask. You also have your NFC with Apple Pay, and then you also have on this phone pretty excellent camera setup as well too. Now you have a 12 megapixel standard, so compared to like the other flagships, the sensor is kind of low in megapixels because when you blow these pictures up on the computer and zoom in, you kind of lose detail. I think that's the only thing about this camera, but everything else is really, really great. It's got a 12 megapixel telephoto lens with 3x optical zoom, and then a 12 megapixel ultra wide on here, as well as a macro sensor. And then you have 4K at 24, and then it goes all the way up to 60 with a 12 megapixel selfie cam that does 4K, 24, 25, and then up to 60 as well. And yeah, the image quality is very good on this phone, as you would expect. I still think the iPhone takes some of the best video. Honestly, I think the Galaxy phones are pretty close, but it's really, really close. But I do think iPhone video is excellent. You also have on this phone excellent battery life. So that's one of the things I really want to stress on this phone, especially at this size. It usually takes me 3 days before I have to charge this phone. So if you're like a light user and you don't game a lot, literally 3 days. And you know, I never charge this phone until like the third day. It's really crazy. So it's a 3095 milliamp battery, 23-watt fast charging with the MagSafe wireless charging, as well as the standard wireless charging. And yeah, the battery life is absolutely amazing on here. All right, next is the S22 Ultra. This is an excellent phone, starting out at $1,200, so it's very expensive. And this is one of those top tier flagships, of course, and it's got the aluminum frame. It is just a beast. It just feels extremely solid. Glass back on here, IP68 dust and water resistant. I really love the design choice this year. A lot of people prefer the S21 Ultra, but I think this looks extremely clean. I actually do like both of those designs. It kind of looks like the Velvet to me, but I really do like this design change. So this phone does have now, you know, with the S series, it's technically really a Note, so it's got the more boxy shape, and you have the stylus built into it now. So basically, if you're into digital artwork or just navigating with a stylus, this is a really good option for you. So I really like to just jot down notes and stuff on this phone. This has one of the best displays on any phone right now too. It's got the dynamic AMOLED, 120 hertz HDR10 plus, and then 1750 nits peak brightness, so it's extremely bright outdoors. Really amazing. 6.8 inches 1440p display, and then 500 for the PPI. Overall, it's a really nice display. It does have a curve, which some people like, some people don't like, but I really love the more boxy design as opposed to the S21 Ultra. So this phone does have Android 12 with One UI 4.1, and what's really cool what Samsung did here is that you get 4 years instead of 3 years of major OS updates. I think that's really amazing. So this is one of the longest lasting Android phones as far as major OS updates, and I believe the S21 series gets that as well too. So that's really cool on Samsung's part. The new Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, of course, very powerful. It takes up a lot of heat. It does get hotter. It seems like each year these new Snapdragon processors they seem to just take more power and get really hot. But as far as for me, I'm not a huge gamer, but Performance wise, it's amazing, super fast, extremely snappy. You do not have any type of SD card support, and this is an issue where I have. So it's 128 gigs and 8 gigs of RAM for the base model. So if you don't have a phone to trade in and stuff like that, if you're just buying this out, let's say you coming from iPhone, that's a lot of money. So I would prefer the 256 gigs be the base model and 12 gigs of RAM. I mean, you can get a Pixel, with 12 gigs of RAM. So Samsung's claim for that was something about the virtual RAM, which I wasn't really buying. But yeah, so that's the only thing I really don't like. And also the speakers are a little bit weaker this year than on other, like the Note 10 Plus, the S21 Ultra. Those have louder speakers. So I don't know what happened with the speakers this year. They're not bad by any means, but definitely weaker. And you do have NFC, super fast fingerprint scanner, all of the bells and whistles with Samsung desktop support. And the highlight with this phone is really the camera system. So it's a 108 megapixel main lens, 10 megapixel periscope telephoto lens. It does 10x, and then you have another telephoto lens at 10 megapixels that does 3x, then an ultra wide 12 megapixels, then a macro mode, 8K 24, 40 megapixel selfie that shoots in 4K 60. And you also have 100 times zoom on this phone. So absolutely incredible camera specs on here, super detailed shots, great low light. It is an amazing camera. So for the price, everything is just really amazing as far as image quality, video. It is definitely top tier in the camera department. You do have a 5,000 milliamp battery with 45-watt charging, with wireless charging and reverse wireless charging. Battery life easily gets a full day's use, so I've never had an issue with this phone. Going to a full day. So yeah, I really do like the S22 Ultra. Now I wanted to throw the LG V60 in here. Now even though it's not the latest, and most powerful chipset, I think for the price, and then considering that this phone is still extremely powerful and offers crazy features for, 250 bucks, go watch my videos. I have a ton of videos on this phone, and it's just absolutely amazing. So I have to put this on the list. Beautiful design, aluminum frame. It feels like a tank, IP68 dust and water resistant. It's a very big phone at 6.8 inches with a POLED display, HDR10 plus, 1080p, 395 for the PPI. Overall, really nice display. Yes, it's lacking high refresh rate, but honestly, it's still a great display experience, very high quality, even for a 1080p panel. Mine has Android 11 on it, Snapdragon 865, Adreno 650. You also get micro SD card support, 128 gigs of internal storage, and 8 gigs of RAM. What's awesome about this phone is that you can still play any game in the Play Store at max settings. So Fortnite, Call of Duty, PUBG, it all plays excellently. So I really do love the performance. It's still extremely fast. You also have amazing sounding stereo speakers, great bass quality. You also have a quad DAC on this phone as well too, so you get high quality audio if you have a good pair of headphones. And also you have the dual screen case capability, so you can really turn this phone into two phones. So now you guys see why I said this is still extremely powerful even in 2022. So you also have NFC. The fingerprint scanner is fine. I wish we had face unlock. It does work, so I don't have an issue with it. It's not the fastest. The cameras are actually really good. I really miss LG's image processing as far as the colors. You really get natural colors, really nice skin tones, a 64 megapixel standard, a 13 megapixel ultra wide, a 0.3 depth sensor, 8K video, and then a 10 megapixel selfie cam that shoots in 4K 30. Absolutely awesome image quality, especially considering the price, and I think the specs on the cameras are great. The battery life is really a standout feature as well. 5,000 milliamp battery with wireless charging. Just crazy battery life, easily gets you through 2 days battery life. It's a really good performer in that area, and I think mostly because there is no high refresh rate, so you save a lot, and there's no 1440p this year as well too, so it does an excellent job in the battery department. The next phone on my list is the iPhone 13 mini. I think this is an extremely unique phone because Apple is the only manufacturer that is making a phone this size. And it's just absolutely incredible. It's sad that we don't get more smaller flagships, and this phone does something really incredible that other smaller flagships could not do, and that is have excellent battery life at this size. So that is one of the main things I want to start off with. crazy good battery life, only with a small 2,438 milliamp battery, and that's due to this new chip in here. It has wireless charging, the MagSafe charging. Battery life is seriously impressive on this phone, especially considering the size. It could go all day, day and a half for me, so I was really impressed with that. The build is pretty much the same as the the 13 models. Aluminum frame, IP68 dust and water resistant, sharp edges. Just a really nice build quality. In general, you have a really nice display, the Super Retina XDR OLED display, HDR10 Dolby Vision. It gets up to 1200 nits peak brightness at 5.4 inches, and it's 1080p 476 for the PPI. Overall, a top-notch quality panel. Of course, you do have that notch up top. But this phone has iOS 15, the Apple A15 chip is on board, and that's how you're just getting excellent performance with this phone. Launching apps, gaming, it's all top tier, all runs at max settings. Of course, it is a really nice experience. 128 gigs of internal storage and 4 gigs of RAM on the base model. You also have on here excellent sounding stereo speakers, especially considering the size of this phone. Just super full sound with the bass. You also have NFC. Face ID works flawlessly. And the cameras on here are pretty much flagship tier. They're just like the iPhone 13's cameras, a 12 megapixel standard, a 12 megapixel ultra wide with 4K 60, and then a 12 megapixel selfie cam that shoots in 4K 60 as well too. And yeah, so just excellent across the board. So the last smartphone is the Xiaomi 12 Pro. This is a phone I've been really interested in, but I haven't had a lot of feedback from the channel on bringing more Xiaomi phones, so let me know what you guys think about that. But I really like this phone. It's a top tier Xiaomi phone here. Beautiful design on here. Absolutely love the camera module on here. It's super beautiful, very futuristic looking to me. You also have the LTPO AMOLED display, 120 hertz, HDR10 plus. This goes up to 1500 nits brightness, 6.73 inch display, 1440p, 521 for the PPI. So just a beautiful display on here. Of course, Android 12 with MIUI 13, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 on here, so you're getting top tier performance. No SD card support, 128 gigs of internal storage, 8 gigs of RAM on here. You also have stereo speakers on here. There's actually 4 speakers on this phone. It's pretty crazy. So from what I heard, it's excellent speaker quality on here. You also have the infrared port, which is super nice to have. I absolutely love that feature on Xiaomi phones. Fingerprint scanner is under the display, and then you also have on here a top tier camera setup, 50 megapixel wide, 50 megapixel telephoto, 2x optical zoom, and then a 50 megapixel ultra wide as well. It shoots in 8K 24, and then a 32 megapixel selfie that shoots in 1080p 60. So image quality from what I've seen is going to be top tier. It's going to be up there with the iPhones, the Samsung, the Pixels. So you're going to get excellent image quality from what I've seen. And then the battery life from what I've seen has a really good rating too at 4,600 milliamps. You actually get 120 watts charging, which is absolutely nuts. And then a 50 watt wireless charging. So that is crazy. It does reverse wireless charging as well. So those charging speeds are absolutely insane. So definitely check out the Xiaomi 12 Pro if those specs interest you. So be sure to let me know what you guys thought, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.